a hangout on content strategy. Hopefully, Jim and Miranda and a few of the other people here are going to provide some tips on how you can improve your content strategy. Having one would be a start, and I've seen a few cases where that was not true, and it did not work out very well. So how about start with Jim? He can introduce himself, tell us a bit about him, and why he's here.
Hey, I'm Jim Hedger. I'm one of the partners at Digital Always Media. I've been an SEO for longer than I can remember. And I've always focused on content as my most potent tool in my SEO tool chest. When you asked me to be part of this Hangout, Terry, I'd actually intended to talk about something different that I'm going to talk about today. But 2 days ago, Facebook had to pull advertising from a dating website. I'm not going to mention the name of the site. They don't need publicity. But they got pulled because they used content really badly. They used images of a dead 17-year-old girl asking people if they wanted to meet Canadian women online. The images were so offensive that Facebook pulled their ads, and they're never allowed to advertise on Facebook again. So I was going to talk about giving your client what they need rather than exactly what they want. But I prefer talking about using the services of professional content creation companies and not going with the amateurs, the fly-by-nights, the ones who end up putting up either copyrighted or absolutely inappropriate images.
Jim, you could also say, Jim, that proper content development teams, what you guys do and Doc and Gabs, and it is in the world of Panda akin to a crappy one is akin to a bad link builder in Penguin. No,
absolutely.
A bad content developer is your Panda bait, whereas a bad link builder is your Penguin bait.
I'm inclined to agree. We've been creating web content for years. I'm not suggesting it's formulaic. It's not formulaic at all. But there's things you do and things you don't do. There's so much you write, and sometimes less is more. A lot of content companies who are just getting into the game, just writing content for the sake of writing content, or just expanding their own services into an area that they don't actually have competence in.
Right, and that's again, that's going back to the link builder analogy. That's that. Just throw some links at it. Just throw some content. Over to Odesk or wherever the hell you're going and get some content up for the sake of content. And I've talked to a couple of dojo members lately that are in the content development world, and she's talking to me privately on Skype. She's like, well, they just want me to blah and spit stuff out and this and that, and there is no strategy whatsoever. It's that content for the sake of content attitude, and that's a bad one to have.
No, but then just to note, I've got my outrage out. My rant is over. Let's talk about building a smart content strategy.
Okay, so Dave's introduced himself. Now he's working as guest host today. Steve's busy getting a roof over his head, lest he be joining me in the box behind the gas station. Miranda, introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you.
Okay, I'm Miranda Miller. I'm a freelance writer. I've been creating content for the web for about 10 years now. So I've done a bit of journalism, a lot of business writing, a bit of work in education. So I have a pretty well-rounded content background.
Yeah, best known for writing for Search Engine Watch, I guess, eh?
Yep.
There you go. Wrote some good stuff there. I've read more than a few. So, I'll just get out my notes here, and we'll start by saying I think everyone does content audits. What do you think the role of the content audit should play in determining your overall strategy for the content? What role should that play? Let's start with, I'll start with Miranda and then go to Jim and Dave. And lastly, Wiz, because he has some good insights into the buying cycle. And
yeah, so I think that a content audit is the necessary first step, and a lot of people still aren't doing it. That's where you see this sort of like library disease where things are just added and added, and no one in the organization has any idea how much content is out there. It's not optimized for people to be able to find it. You should have everything interlinked. There should be a purpose to it. So a content audit is really finding all those different pieces of content, whether they're on the site itself or whether they're publishing in other places, and just to get a good overall view of what they're already doing so you know where to start.
Okay, to add to what Miranda said, we're marketers. And to steal from Seth Godin, all marketers are storytellers. He said actually all marketers are lawyers, but I'm going to say that all marketers are storytellers. So when doing a content audit, one of the things that we're looking for is our client telling their story? Are they telling the story the way that they would want it told, and are they telling it in a way that's going to benefit sales? There's not a lot there's not a lot more to add to what Miranda said, except are we focusing on what the client really needs, and are we telling their story for them?
Yeah, I would add that it's not just the client. Possibly as a marketer, I'm more interested in the user's needs. Sometimes the owner's needs aren't much beyond selling more product.
Well, that's why I always tell people rather early on is to, because 99% of the time they're not. But if you're not, start getting your customer service department and whoever's handling inquiries to start writing down the common questions that they're getting all the time. You know what I mean? Because that's not only a great source of content if it's videos or articles or whatever you're doing around that topic, but it's saving that time. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, Terry, it saves that. It's answering a question. It's answering a need. It's not content for the sake of content. I mean, I was talking to someone last night. I think to a degree, a lot of people would rather that. They don't want to. They feel kind of intimidated if they have to phone in the phone number to ask a question or this and that. If you can provide a lot of those answers on the website through content, you know what I mean? It helps that, conversion rate. It helps that usability as well, and it's a source of content, What questions are the people in the support team getting? What questions are the people in the sales team getting over and over that can be used as content,
Yeah, and that's actually where I'm going to go next is I think a lot of people, because they don't do the content audit, they miss where they could possibly they miss opportunities because they haven't looked at the whole buying cycle and what content is needed at each stage of the cycle. And Dave touched on that a bit. You can get some of that from the sales staff who know what kind of questions the customer is asking them. Now, recently, the Wiz there, or the wizard as we call him in the room, he was going over using content in the buying process to provide information on certain steps along that. And maybe you want to talk about that a bit, Wiz, and how you use that in your content audit strategy.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, after you do your personas and the surveys to build your personas, the second step that we do over here is we try to have like a lead nurturing program, and this is where we match the content assets, the content, what they call that, the buy cycle to mapping these content to the buying cycles from unawareness to retention. In the blog post that I mentioned that I wrote on Monday, I think, I mentioned 4 stages where actually the buying cycle is actually 3 stages, but I added the retention at the end because it is important to based on customer service, the email marketing campaign that build that relationship with the customer. I add a couple tips in it, but usually the buying cycle starts with an awareness till the purchase of that specific product, and in each section I try to mention as much as I can what type of content that you can include for each buying cycle, each of the cycle, and the call to action that you need to use in the content.
Yeah, that's why I thought that article was pretty good in that
Yeah.
it was giving that kind of information. I know that's one of the things that I really look at because I'm interested in using video. So I'm looking where can video best work in that in the strategy, and where
Did you find out which
certain.
one?
Pardon me.
Did you find out in which stage?
Yeah.
Well, usually video content can work anywhere from the first two phases, which is the unawareness or awareness, and in the what they call it, the evaluation part, which basically you can have like demos or try to compare your product to the other products. You can use it with a video, and the unawareness is basically the reach. You can reach people with videos also. So
Yeah.
whatever
That's what I
asset you
mean.
use. Yeah.
So one of the oh boy, slow day. So that would go into how you're choosing your content, and I think that's a really important part of the content strategy, because a lot of these things are worked in conjunction. For instance, I like to match video, press releases, blogger outreach, and all those in one campaign, not just one campaign that's only using one type of content. I want to have a campaign that I can use as many of those as possible. Any thoughts on that? And that's because you can repurpose content too. As
Right.
Steve knows, that's my middle name. I'm always looking for those other uses.
Well, and I'll just jump in there for a second. I think when you're trying to sell the idea of doing a content audit, it can be difficult if your client or the people above you in the company don't understand why it's necessary. And a big part of it is discovering which assets you already have. So not only the work that you've done previously that you could repurpose or you could refresh, but also the people in your company that work well together, the people who are good at promoting video, producing video, writing press releases. You might have some people who aren't really recognized for the work that they're doing, some people who aren't focusing in the right areas. So you really need to know where you stand with your internal assets, where you need to outsource before you can move forward with the strategy.
Exactly. And
Also-
that also enables you in an agency to schedule the work for these people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could say something about somewhere that we will say
But
no.
you won't.
No.
Before reaching into
Take it from there, Jimmy.
one of the cool things about the mediums that we work in is there's any number of tools inside of our our content toolboxes. Video, audio. You can use SlideShare to put if you want to. You can use SlideShare to put PowerPoint up on a blog post. Social media can be part of your content strategy. But what you really got to ask is, what are you selling, and to whom are you selling it? I can see a number of uses of certain types of content for some products that would be absolutely useless on other types of products. I spent a year and a half selling bathtubs and showers. That was a client I had a large e-commerce site selling bathtubs. You can only go so far with words when you're describing bathtubs. There's like 480 different manufacturers of bathtubs in this world. How many different ways can you describe a bathtub? But a video goes a gajillion miles in a description, especially when you're selling a high-end product.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't really realize. Video's more about seeing things and that you can't touch, usually on the web, and that's how I try and describe it to clients.
We're asking people to spend, in the case of this client I had, they were asking people to spend in the high hundreds or even into the thousands on one item that was going to be shipped to them. They, and this is an e-com place, so they can't, the customer can't go touch it, can't go see its actual size. They have to relate to it somehow. And again, words and image alone just don't do it. especially when you're asking, again, somebody to put $2,500 on their credit card. So again, you need to use any tool at your disposal that's relevant to the audience and meeting a need the audience has to tell the story of your clients, for your clients.
Well, and a lot of that is about education. I wrote about this last year or early this year on Search Engine Watch, and just understanding the different learning styles. So people who they learn by reading, people who learn by seeing, people who have to write things out. So if you can appeal to the different types of learners, what you're really trying to do is educate your customers. You want them to understand how they can use your product, you know, the different ways that they can use it. And so using a variety of mediums allows you to reach out to all those different people.
Right, and that's where a lot of people don't really spend enough time, is trying to really understand who the audience is for a website and how that may differ from product to product. Like, surprisingly, when I was in payday loans, we started looking at that. The people that you would think would be prime candidates weren't actually the best. The best were women teachers, actually.
Now, for the content developers here, let me ask, as you're researching it, are you tailoring concepts and programs towards, you know, where that content's being not only, you know, digested but shared? You know, I mean, do you have more? Does this market tend to have more people on Facebook or Twitter or wherever? You know, what kind of considerations research-wise are you doing externally as far as where that content's going to end up, YouTube or wherever? Like, what kind of research or what kind of factors are you looking for to decide, am I going to tailor this content towards a certain crowd or audience?
If I could get that one first, Miranda. For us, there's two phases. One is our initial research, where, you know, it's keyword driven, and then, you know, demographic driven. We ask our client, to describe who their customers are. After that, you make your assumptions. You deploy the content you think is going, or the content types you think are going to resonate best, and then you fall back on analytics. What is working? What isn't working? This is a good segue into the idea of A/B/C testing content. Make 3 versions of content. Try it out over a period of 2 months. You know, just changing it back and forth every couple of days. See what resonates best. So again, there's at least 2 phases to answer that question, David. You got to go with what your client initially tells you, and then you got to go with, you know, actual human behavior.
So there's no, you know, the acid test at the end of the day is deploying things and seeing what they do.
That's the best testing environment around, right?
Well, and I'm thinking.
Go ahead.
Or once you identify those things that are working well, you want to get the most out of everything you're doing. So if you've done one piece of original research, you can have your charts in your blog post, but you could also make those into a slide share. You can also put them on, oh my God, I forgot what it's called, Pinterest. You can have, you know, stats that you can tweet out, and they all lead back to this. You can get a lot of content out of one idea.
Yep, and the proper images could be pulled out of the slide share and put on Facebook or Google Plus as well. There's, you know, that's what I think people really also need to look at and have a plan for how they're building their content. Because at certain stages, you can pull out and kind of advertise where you're going with a finished product, build up to it using the actual materials that are going to appear in the finished content.
I saw Eric nodding away over there. So yeah, you know, you're in the media business these days. You know what I mean. So how are you testing against social, or what kind of data collection are you using? In the chat here, you said to see what works, measure, then replicate. So how are you going about that?
Well, actually, I mean, so we have a lot of content writers. I mean, a lot of editors, a lot of producers, and they're going to write about whatever they think is the hottest content out there or hottest topic. So it's less about the keyword research from a, you know, news publishing model, because you have to be so reactive. You can't just like say keywords, right? But at the same time, what we do with the social side is we test into each of the social communities. So Facebook users behave differently than Twitter users, than Google Plus, than Pinterest, than all those others. And what resonates with them are different, right? So like what we see with Google Plus is that it's slightly older audience. So when we're talking about music, things like the Backstreet Boys resonate better than something like Miley Cyrus, versus Facebook or Twitter. They tend to skew a little bit younger. And then once we figure out what kind of content works, so we figure out what the topics they're interested in, then we figure out what kind of format the content should come in. Should it come in like slideshows, videos, lists, long form, short form, featured length, and those kind of things. And then once we figure what that is, that works really well, then we actually produce more of that and then push more of that for those particular audiences. But at the same time, tailoring content too closely to each one of those social networks is not necessarily ROI positive, because it's still only a fraction of your overall traffic. So you need to make sure that the content you produce still has that wide audience base that can be reshared into other networks.
Right, because if they see it on Facebook, they may put it on Pinterest as well, right from Facebook, right, using the app. So there's, you got to, I use every channel that I'm using for a client. I put it all down the channels. I don't really try and differentiate or target content to a channel. They're all just channels to me.
For what it's worth, Terry, you know that Eric's content gets a lot more reaction a lot faster than the content me or my team's writing. Let's face it, we're much more interested in pop culture lists than we are in 437 styles of bathtub.
It's true. Well, when I was at Demand, we also did very similar things as well. But definitely, it's true. A lot of people didn't necessarily want to share the how-tos from eHow, or necessarily Livestrong actually did a lot better, where people were into fitness, but it was basically trying to find that niche where people would then want to interact. I mean, we quickly figured out there's certain topics that people are one and done. They're not going to really reshare. So you have to find that particular part of your business that people really do want to talk about and reconsume.
Oh, I like talking about how to pour a glass of water. It's one of the big topics for me.
No comment.
Got to make a video. Don't forget the video, man.
Anyhow, one of the things that I use, because I'm not really a big data guy, I want to go and review things. First thing I do when I'm doing a content audit is I go and look at the competitors. That's, to me, is the best data that I can find, because if I see every one of the competitors is using a video on their conversion page, I kind of know that video must be working. Same with at different stages. What are they writing about? All those things tell you a lot more than a bunch of fucking data. I'm sorry. And that has, in my opinion, because of tools, SEO stopped doing that kind of review. For me, it used to be, I want to go to that site. If they're getting what looks like a lot of traffic for a calculator of some sort, I want to look at that calculator and figure out a better way to do it. Make it appeal to a broader audience. Eventually, appealing to that broader audience, i.e. the value add, puts me there and that guy's gone. That's where I think people kind of miss using competitors. And what do you guys think about that? Start with Miranda.
I think that competitive analysis is definitely part of it, but you have to make sure you're not just doing what everyone else is doing because they're doing it. So there are trends that come along and it might not make a lot of sense, but everybody hops on it. And I mean, if it's working for you, good, but just because everyone else is doing it, I don't think that's a good reason to take on any one digital marketing strategy.
Well, your competitor might be doing podcasts, but you can't replicate that because you've got a Terry and, well, they've got a Terry and you don't. So,
That's the other thing. That comes down to what can you do that they are doing as well. Like, some people just have that advantage because, and you can't really replicate that. And those are the things that you should use to differentiate yourself from the other sites. If they can't do it, that's a distinct advantage to you.
There's no arguing that competitor analysis is important. I put a lot of stock in what the competitors are doing, but that rarely dictates what I'm going to do. I mean, yes, if I see something is successful, I want to do it as well.
Or a spin off it, or your own take of it, or your own version, yeah.
Absolutely. But, you know, another thing competitor analysis tells us is stuff that our competitors aren't doing that we can do. And that analysis, for me, is done mostly in the social media. Are the competitors engaging with that community in Twitter? Are they getting a lot of pins in Pinterest or reposts in Facebook? And to me, that comes down to engagement, which in and of itself is content creation. Every tweet you put out, every Facebook post you put, that's awesome content.
Well, and you can learn a lot too from their negative mentions. So you should be monitoring, you know, what problems do they have that they're not solving for consumers, and where is there an opportunity for you to create content around that?
Yeah, I've always been very interested in what salespeople ask. For instance, when Dave and I were working for a company, we found out from their salespeople that they were having trouble getting certain concepts across to SEO. So Dave and I suggested they use video because the spoken word sometimes just doesn't get understood. The videos would have been a much better way to do it. So once you've started this audit, right? I guess what I'm going towards now is when you're choosing content, we talked about you know, filling needs and you know, looking at competitors. I guess now we can go on to what kind of tools you're using to do your analysis. For me, one of the most important is Screaming Frog. After that, I don't think there's maybe Majestic.
I don't even want to hear from Eric. I'll just be jealous as usual.
Thanks.
Don't even ask Eric what tools he has. A bastard.
Yeah, well, Eric writes his own. That would be kind of unfair. So what do you people use to discover all the content out there and what's on a site? For me, also, the good thing about Screaming Frog is you can use that monthly to figure out what a site has added. They don't often tell you what they've added to the website. So if you can use Screaming Frog, it's got in the sitemap output, it includes last modified dates. So you can easily pull that into Excel and you know, find out what the new content is and what's old and what's new. So I use Screaming Frog. Any of you others use that? And
you know, I use Screaming Frog. And Terry, you and I have talked about Screaming Frog products before. I love them. I think they're great. They're great folks too. You know, another tool you can use. This might sound silly and somewhat counterintuitive, and it's way old. Remember Xenu?
yeah.
XENU.
Link Sleuth.
Oh, it's much like Link Sleuth in that it gives you a footprint of an entire website. It's a free download, and it takes hours to run over large sites. But it'll show you everything that's involved in a website.
What are there for like social media tools? That, you know, I know there's some rudimentary ones over at Search Metrics and stuff like that, but I don't think they're full featured enough yet, Terry. You know what I mean? But you know, to get some sort of map of, you know, various social activities on pages throughout a site in that format. I don't know if there is anything out there. It's not my territory, but is there? You know, because Search Metrics will show how many tweets, how many pluses, how many Facebook's links, your Pinterest, and all this kind of shit. And you'll see aggregate numbers. But it'd be interesting to drill down and see which posts, because then if you're doing competitive analysis or if you've just come into a new client, you can sort of establish that relation of the social graph to the content they have. You know what I mean? Almost on a page level basis. No, I don't know if there is anything.
Yeah, Majestic will do that now, Dave, with the wildcard feature that they added yesterday. They actually talked about how you could find the best tweet by someone by using their wildcard.
Yeah, well, I'd talk, but apparently Dixon and Mel are too busy to talk to us. So,
Yeah.
anyways, moving right along. Yes.
Actually,
Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
I'm recently, so I wouldn't get too.
Go ahead, Eric.
If I don't know, I mean, like, I don't know what everybody's like budget is for tools, but
about $25,000 a month, okay? Here we go.
But I mean, what we use here actually is we use a combination of both. Well, we actually use definitely Google Real Time kind of gives you some of like the what's trending, but if specifically for content, both Chartbeat and Parsley. If you're not familiar with Parsley, they're kind of like more of the new kid on the block. Chartbeat's been around for a while, but both are great for your content teams to understand what's actually working.
Links in the chat, man.
Oh man, it's parsley.com.
You can do it.
Hey, Eric, Sharply is part of Raven as well, isn't it?
Chartbeat, I don't know if Raven has integration with Chartbeat, but I wouldn't be surprised. They have a pretty damn good API. But from editorial perspective, what you can see is not only content that's trending at that moment, which is actually really great for the news organizations, but like Parsley, they have the same thing where like they show you like number of likes, number of tweets, and they also show you kind of like links that are being generated as they see refers coming in. Also, they break down all the traffic for you per article, so you can actually see like your direct traffic, your referral traffic, where your major refers are, your social traffic, your direct traffic. It breaks it all down. Your earned and owned. It breaks all that stuff down, and also you can start aggregating things by whether or not
What kind of budgets are we talking with these tools?
I'm not sure exactly what we pay. I'm thinking it's in the $1,000 to $2,000 area.
Okay, well that's not
that's
too
also
bad.
We have a lot of sites, right? So
I was gonna say, well, no, but even if I mean, even if I'm running 4 e-commerce or what other sites, that's still not a lot on it divided out over a handful of campaigns. So.
And then also it's cool, you can break it down by authors. So if you have multiple authors, you can see which authors are performing. And then also if you have freelancers, right, you want to know whether or not you want to bring that freelancer on more full time. It aggregates all that stuff by author and the trends. And also it shows you like evergreen versus like whether or not it's a revitalized article. It's a great tool.
Really, eh? Which one's out of the two? That's.
I would say Parsley is my favorite, but Chartbeat is more of the kind of like more of the industry standard. I would say it's just more heavily used by a lot more editorial teams. They're more comfortable with it.
Right.
Yeah, there was an article recently that was using data that come out of Parsley about new sites. I'm sure you read that, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of great articles, but yeah, you should definitely check out those tools to see if it's right for you. I mean, we use them quite a bit.
Miranda, any tools of choice or weapons in your toolbox? Don't give the good ones. Don't be dumb like Eric and give away the ones that you know.
Well,
Eric just sold out his whole competitive advantage right there.
When you're talking about social, I like to have a look at the influencers in the area. Tracker is a really good tool for that. Not Andy Beal's Tracker, but it's TRAACKR. And it'll help you figure out, who is sharing the content that's really influential. And a lot of bloggers now, and certainly magazines, are using editorial calendars, and you can actually look it up several months to a year in advance. That can help you plan timely content, so it might have a better chance of getting picked up by those people if you could say, I know you'll be covering this next month, and we've done a bit of research into that, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that. So it takes a bit of legwork, but I think those strategies can definitely pay off big time if you can get a really influential blogger talking about your company.
Dabs and Doc, you're actually on the other end where you're actually making the content. We're sitting here talking about writers and stuff so we're almost a level above with tracking stuff. Like, are there tools as actual hands-on content developer, outside both your abilities to write, are there any other things you're using, like Google Trends or something maybe? I don't know.
Well, we develop content, but we also do content strategy. And, Eric pointed out, I don't have that kind of budget. So most of my what we'll do with a content audit has some overlap with what we would do in a site audit. So we'll look out there and see what the content is available on the online, whether it be on site or off, and determine where the traffic is in social, and we try to identify the audience above everything, and then from there we can identify. Of course, obviously, the first step is to identify the message. What are we trying to get across for the company? Then we define the audience, and then we look at the avenues and the method. For automated tools, I have several tools that I do when I do a site audit. I use 2 or 3 of those when I'm doing just a content audit to identify and locate first the content, then the users, and try to bracket them.
Dabs.
Yeah, I don't really have that much to add. I mean, we try to pull all the content that we can, all the assets, regardless of whether it's written content, video, audio, initially, and again, try to see if they're actually using the different various, whether it's keywords, whether it's intent, whether it's goals. So a lot of that, I know Doc and I go through the site manually. And yeah, we do use some tools. Sometimes I'll even jump on Google Analytics and just pull, just from Google Analytics.
Well, I even liked Eric's a bit about the real-time stuff. But actually, I find myself looking at it a lot more.
Yeah, and again, depending on what the company is. I mean, if it's something like what Eric's doing, then of course you want real-time stuff. But if it's lawyers, engineers, or flower shops, I mean, there's each niche has a different approach, but you're still
the real time has less of a value unless you're running a specific campaign on that day or that week or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
We actually have a question, folks. First ever SEO Pros HelpLine Hangout Q&A. Steve Bonin, he's been actually in a lot of these lately everywhere we go, Terry. He's asking, how do you research to find out who your audience is, let's say for a local company budget? All right, Jim, we'll go there for, since you were talking about the local stuff earlier, smaller group of people.
Okay, for a local the way the question's phrased, you ended with local company budget.
Well, if you click on Q&A here on the left, you'll be able to see the question on the right.
Oh, I can. Excellent.
Yep. Verbatim, and then you can decide what he's...
Just a moment. We're just downloading the app to get the audience question.
The question doesn't appear there for me.
Yeah, it doesn't even
really,
appear.
eh? Oh, wow, man. Anyways,
I'm afraid I just downloaded an app for nothing. Oh, there we go. Say for a local company budget. Well, Steve, it really depends on the local company's budget. I'm sorry, that's the truth. And here's a hard truth. The web is an expensive place to work. Our time, and I'm not saying this to sound conceited or anything, but our time costs money. So if it's a local company, if it's a small company, how large is its area? What is it selling? Is it for hipsters? Is it for older people? Who are its demographics? Does it have parking? There's a whole bunch of questions you have to ask about the physical location to figure out who its clients are. What does the sales staff say? You go to the retail clerk, the person at the cash register, and ask them about their customers. The best way to do, I'd say, do research for a local business is talk to the business itself, talk to the employees, talk to people in the shop, find out who they are. It's when you start talking a regional or a national business where you can't actually go and reach out and touch those people yourself. Then you have to start doing the real research.
Well, and I think for a small company, anyone can do this if they know how and they have the time. But to see where people live on social, you can use the Facebook or LinkedIn Ads Manager and just put in different interests, different broad categories, different groups, and see how many people are active on those social networks from that area. Then you have to figure out how to reach them, and I mean that's going to cost money, but it doesn't cost anything to go in, pretend you're going to create an ad, and have a look at how many people are registered.
And you know what, Miranda, that's true. That'll give you an idea of a small group of people in a somewhat defined local area.
Yeah, just on that network. Like, would it be worth me even considering advertising here? Yes or no?
Would you be able to do that for your neighborhood in your central Ontario city?
I can, and it'll say you can go up to 15 kilometers around. It gets pretty small. I've been able to look up towns that are 15,000 people, 10,000, 15,000. So quite a few are listed now.
Steve, I see that Steve Bonin is actually typing into the question. Does that answer your question?
He wants to know the budget's 1,000 to 1,500. So he originally had 500. I was going to say that's not going to get you much. You'd have to stick to pretty basic campaigns, I think, for $500. 1,000, you're getting into where you can produce actually decent.
So yeah, and there you go. There's another one, isn't it, guys? Because to me, a half-decent piece of content that, you know what I mean, my team's doing research on the background and the demographic, Doc and Gabs are writing the piece, da-da-da, then you got promotional efforts. $1,000 isn't an unreasonable number for one good piece of content, is it, really? Like, including all the promotional elements and everything outside of that. Like an evergreen piece of pillar content of some kind, you know?
Well, I mean, think about how often it's going to get used and deployed in the future, too, eh? You're not just buying the piece of content for a one-off promotion.
Exactly.
Right, it's a piece of pillar content, that evergreen kind of stuff that over time will stand up.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, too, when you tailor it to the buying process, it's always going to get used. It may be a piece of content now, but now it's part of the helping the user make their decisions. So it's going to get reused. It's part of
and it builds authority and many other signals that, you know,
right.
If it's Google or anywhere else, proliferate, right? You know, they're all good. I'd rather have two $500 pieces of content, including, you know, whatever promotional elements, than I would having 10 or 20 posts, you know, one every day or crap like that. You know, I'd rather have two pieces of stand-up exceptional work than I would 20 of crap.
Yeah, I'm in the that same field where I think instead of doing guest blogging, I'd rather be a contributor on 4 sites and give each site one piece every week. And, you know, screw the guest blogging. Like, why spend all that time looking to get on sites that when you look at their homepage, they're probably an accident looking to happen. When you look at guest bloggers' sites to vary the topics, except for instance, Dave, we at SNC, you and I look for contributors, not guest posters, right? We didn't want a guy who's going to come in and do 1 or 2 posts. We wanted contributors. We wanted people who we can count on them every you know, when they're scheduled.
Now, to note that, Terry, that's hard to do if you're talking about like volunteer-generated content. Finding people who will write for free is getting harder and harder and harder.
Oh, isn't it just?
People who will write quality for free is getting harder.
And that's it. You know, I can find lots of people to write for free, but that content's not doing anything. It's you know, not the kind of, you know, there'd be certain people on SNC that when they wrote, bang, you know, but that they were in small demand. You know, there wasn't many of us. There was more of just every day, and that's important. You just and then you're building brand, and then your, you know, perceptions of your brand, you know, as some of the other news rags in our industry have suffered, and yeah, it's those people too. Scott Derrick's asking, what do we mean when I said promotional elements? Meaning that when you're planning a content strategy or planning any piece of content, it's not living in a void. It's, you know, the old tree falls in a forest. So if it's your PR teams reaching out to their contacts, if it's the social teams doing their thing, once that content's deployed, there are still elements and costs that people might not understand. So again, if I'm talking a $500 piece, if you know, whatever your social media costs are and supportive elements to that, you got to include that in the cost of the program or the strategy, because it's not for free. So.
It doesn't promote itself. Someone's actually got to get on.
Unless you're Eric, and you got to say to me.
And here's the thing: you're further ahead to do it that way too, because you know, my true belief is that social is not a ranking factor, it's a ranking signal, and if you won't put your content down your social channels, Google just says it's so crappy, they won't put it down their social channels. So that's why it looks like it's correlated to ranking.
And, you know, beyond ranking, social moves people. Social moves eyeballs. I bet you half the media intake I have now is because I saw it in social.
And it builds brand. It
where
builds brand
I
lift,
gather a lot of my news now is from Google Plus and occasionally Twitter.
Steve Bonin just asked a really interesting question. When you create content, do you do so as yourself, as an employee, or do you write it as a marketing team, or even as the business owner?
Depends.
Depends on how I'm getting paid, I suppose. Really, I can write in voice.
I've sometimes written as up to 8 or 10 people a day. It's exhausting.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure where Steve's going. Hopefully you can clarify a bit. But are you talking about personas, maybe? Meaning who on the company's site is responsible for that piece of content?
And where's the content deployed? Like, is this in social media or on a static page?
I think he's kind of asking what kind of persona do you take?
Yeah. Meaning, here's the issue, guys. You hire someone to develop content, or, let's say, writing on your blog in this instance, and they're writing on that blog, and so now they have you kind of over the barrel if they become this personality that, you know, this could become an issue. Whereas you...
Nice. Dave froze.
Yep.
Does this mean we can get our Bruce Clay jokes in? Like, you know, like Lisa Barone had Bruce Clay over a barrel? Is that what he was getting at? Oh, come on.
Yeah. Oh, is he there? I think he was talking about the risk of developing personalities within your company, and are you screwed if they leave? And I mean,
that's it.
Forrester has written about this a lot. You know, is it too much of a risk? Well, what's the benefit you get from doing that? If you have people in your organization that your customers really relate to, maybe it's worth it for you. You have to protect yourself and make sure that the intellectual property rights are clear. But I think if you have someone in your company that you think might screw you when they leave, they probably shouldn't be there in the first place. So if you have a good relationship, a working relationship, it should be okay. Yeah. Usually the benefits outweigh the risk.
Steve, when we're writing web content for, like, you know, say we're describing a product, it's very dry writing. I don't think that you could say that we're writing as an employee, as ourselves, or as the business owner. We're using descriptive words to try to market a physical object. If one of our old clients is a sort of a mummy blog, a mother's blog, often when we wrote promotional material for it, we tried to write in the voice of the owner, a minor celebrity in Canada. So we tried to write in her voice because it was supposed to be coming from her. So I think the answer to your question is really context-driven. You know, what is the content representing, and in what venue?
I think you have to be pretty careful with personas. Like, you know, if you get, and this is one of the things, right, that for me, authorship being a ranking factor does not make sense. And the reason being is it's people involved. Someone is going to get paid for their name, and Google will not like that. So that's my thing with author rank, is that's just bloggers hoping to make a name, make money off of their name. That's why they...
By the way, Terry, power to them. If a blogger can make money off their writing, power to them. Someone's making money off it.
Yeah, it took us way too long to get there. Don't knock us for making money.
Yeah. Wow.
No, but then don't go write your own book and write your own fucking blog. I still, you know, this is, you know, it's still a consideration anytime you think about it. So
if I'm a businessman, I don't want you coming to me and negotiating your salary because I can't let you go. You know, I mean, that's not a good situation. Though,
like, when I look at, like, authors that we have, right, if, you know, one, if we can't retain them, that's bad on us, or bad on our own company, right? But we can't retain them. But if our authors go off and write at the New York Times and we have their content on our site, that basically means we have a New York Times writer who's written their stuff, right? So if you look at the world of real authorship, it's that quality of content migrates with them, but also where it lives also retains the quality of where that author goes, right? So if they are really a great author and you don't have the abilities to retain them either by the content interest that you're producing or by monetary values, it's not like it's a loss, right? Because they're going to
right. I don't write for search engine landing anymore. But if Google considers me to be an expert, my bio's there, my articles are there, my name is associated with that place, even though I'm not there.
Exactly. And the other thing, I mean, like when I'm thinking about personas, like the thing that we actually use a couple personas here, but not less. It's less because the content that we're writing is either risque or something that can be, I don't know, extremely polarizing in some cases, and you know, either it's something that the writers actually have fun actually jumping into that persona and writing as that person. So it's less about, hey, ghostwrite as this person because I need you to like just pretend to be the person.
Do you guys have like guidelines of the persona and like a backstory or any kind of history when they jump in, or do the writers already know the persona? How do you keep from the voice changing too much? You know?
They pretty much know the persona, right? And like, I mean, it's not hard. I mean, it takes a skilled person to be able to jump into the mindset of that persona, but like people who do it frequently enough, like it's not necessarily hard to context switch into that voice, you know? Like, I mean, if for very good writers, they're able to easily do that, and if you make it fun for them, where it's like, hey, you can, like, if you choose to, you can have this outlet, just like, you know, BS SEO, right? Like, where basically you have that outlet to basically be something else and, like, you know, voice off on something.
Yeah, but there's people out there in our industry especially, they'd still be nobodies if they didn't work at that and write on certain sites. Sorry.
No, I mean, it's
definitely
like
a totally different direction, though, man.
If you look at
Jake doesn't want me to go there.
That's a different hangout altogether, man.
It goes like this when I start to talk. I know I might be venturing into a
whoa, boy, whoa, hold up.
What are we involved with? Oh my God.
Forget our own industry, right? But like, if you look at something like, you know, you guys were talking about like volunteer contributor, like what we call it is contributor model. And when you look at the Huffington Post, they don't pay those people a lot of money to be on the Huffington Post. They've built a platform and a reputation, just like, you know, people in the SEO community here, but like they've built up a reputation where you can build a community. You don't necessarily need to stay there forever, but at the same time, the site gets something out of it, and the writer gets something out of it, just like Search Engine Land and all those other places.
For sure. Yeah. I write there for free, and there's a reason, you know.
I would never tell someone from a site to go to a forum.
Oh, sorry. Steve's next question was, do you use industry forums? Do you ask company experts to answer questions and just rewrite it?
No.
No.
Okay, I'm done. No.
Absolutely not.
I think, okay, I'm going to take a stab at this one. Since actually, it turns out Steve lives about 40 minutes from... Oh, no, he's on the other side of Toronto there, Terry. Actually, he's closer to you. But what I think he's saying is by using industry forums, what he's saying as content idea sources, meaning he's asking, does anyone or has anyone ever, and I know I have for when I started writing about SEO and stuff, do you take questions people have in a forum and then rewrite that into a strong piece of content that answers the question? I think that's what he's driving at. Do you use it as seed ideas for content? He's not saying to go and post on forums. Okay?
Oh, as a seed idea, well, that's fair,
right.
Sure.
I think that's what he seems to be saying here.
If you're looking for ideas in the morning, like where you get your inspiration, as long as it's your words and your explanation and you're not fobbing off someone else's writing as your own, you know.
Nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, I mean, inspiration comes. Hell.
The United States writes his own speeches? I don't think so.
Well, no, but again, we're not talking about them. We're talking about us as content creators, and there's a certain honor to not plagiarizing.
Oh, oh, plagiarism, that's different than...
As Steve wrote the question, it's a... I'm just answering as I'm seeing the question was written.
Yeah.
And
Google decided I didn't need to see the question anymore, so thanks there, Jim.
I think that taking somebody else's thoughts and repurposing them as your own is pretty close to plagiarism when you're a thought leader yourself.
Oh, I would, if I was doing something like that, almost always link back to the forum so that I don't get the shit on me.
Yeah, always credit people with their ideas. It's only fair. We might have some of our own ourselves one day and want the same treatment.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to claim that that's not really how we feel. So always have the case for deniability in there.
Yeah, but again, Steve, if you can find inspiration where other people are asking questions, heck, go for it.
Well, that's what most writing is looking for inspiration to write about this stuff. I mean...
Well, why would you write about it unless you want, at least in our industry, unless you wanted to help answer some question that you yourself or somebody else might have had, right? Like, why else address the topic?
Correct some stupid thing that someone said in another post.
Well, sometimes, too, you may see something that you see can use some expansion. So you simply say, I see John Smith commented on such and such forum, and I'd like to add to that, or I'd like to counter that with this argument. And you can add some more value to it and possibly get some mileage out of any attraction that piece already had. But again, you're giving credit and you're adding value.
Yep.
I think with content, it all comes down to you can do anything that everyone else has done. You won't really get much out of it unless you add value that no one else did.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just regurgitating it.
And I do want to add one more point. If you are going to go to the forums and try to read and write on what you read there, learn to spell two words: causation and coincidence and correlation. That's it. Causation and correlation. If you can spell those two words, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'd use experts in a forum for sure. I'd try and get those experts to be leading guys on the forum too, and then advertise like hell all over the place, for sure. Because that's what a lot of the web and content is about, is demonstrating your abilities or what your product can do or your personal abilities. That's why we started as SEOs and web designers, building websites so that we could showcase our stuff. And that's what websites should be. It should be showing your ability. Or your
crossing into branding too.
Yeah, well.
Well, I know everyone has to get going, and I'm sure, as always, we can sit here and talk about this stuff all day long. So how do we wrap it up? What's a good way to wrap, Terry? Come on, give it in however many sentences you need, Miranda and Eric and Jim. Just some sage wisdom of content strategy. Anything you want, any kind of wisdom, any platform, any direction. Just give us one soundbite before you go.
I think that, especially in local markets, people shouldn't be too intimidated because there is still a lot of crap content going on. It's completely the opposite when you get into bigger brands and global brands, national brands. They're hiring journalists. I mean, you really have to be top of your game now to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
But for the local people, when you hear us talking about that stuff, hiring journalists, you don't have to do that. If you have a bakery in Toronto, for example, just get started. Start blogging, commit to doing it once a week as a start, once every 2 weeks. Do something regular and hold yourself to it.
That's good. Have a plan and work the plan.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm going to riff off something Vanessa Fox wrote the other day. She wrote that she was sick of hearing people say content is king, because it's not. Using content properly makes it a very powerful tool. Content is meant to describe and to move. You describe the product and you move people towards making the either purchase decision or on-page action that you want them to take. Content is a tool. It's a hell of a tool, and it comes in all sorts of forms. Use what's best for that specific application.
Yep.
And Eric.
Oh, well, I'm kind of more on the analytics side of things. So I've definitely come in places where content is a little bit more of a squishy thing, where people just generate ideas and they think this is a great thing that we should be doing. I think that businesses that are going to succeed with whatever your content strategy is going to be is you need to be able to measure it. So definitely make sure that you put in place the metrics in place so that you can actually monitor and evaluate whether or not your content is actually going to be performing well over the long term, and then see if you can replicate that. Ultimately, that's going to help you continue to grow your content strategy, because if you can build a business case around it, you know exactly what's going to be working for you in the future.
And Doc, last but never least, beyond the fact that well-written, grammatically structured content is a ranking factor, what's your one pearl of wisdom for the afternoon?
Well, first of all, I disagree a little bit with Jim that content is only to drive and move. Everybody out there is not trying to sell a product or a service. Some people are simply trying to brand. Some people are simply trying to exercise their desire to share. And eventually some of those people may decide to monetize a blog. They may start to try to make some money off of it. But the content does more than simply push people through the conversion funnel. A lot of times it's pillar content for the individual. I think it's very important to look and see what your content is supposed to accomplish. What is the message? And that's what I see so many clients missing. They're assuming they know their customer, they're assuming they know their message, and they're wrong on both counts a lot of times.
Yeah, I'd say just, for me, it's just do it. And, do what you can afford.
I'm sorry, but that's been trademarked, so you're going to have to come up with something.
Just do it, yeah.
I think Nike might have a bit of a problem here, so...
Oh, okay. But you know what I'm saying, Dave? Basically, I think content should be an ongoing thing, and you should plan on having to always do it, because it's pretty clear that if you stop producing content, Google forgets about you pretty quick.
All right, well, Miranda's got to run. Thank you ever so much for dropping in.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Awesome to see you.
And always great having you.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
And Jim, you got a meeting, do you, sir?
Yeah, I got a meeting in about 10 minutes. So, folks, thank you so much. It was fun hanging out.
Yeah, catch you later.
Later, Jim.
Be well, y'all.
And with that, oh, no. I guess we'll call it a day, Dave.
Unless you guys want to keep talking, I don't mind. And strangely enough,
I'm going to end the broadcast.
You still got 5 viewers who might give a fuck. And you've probably got people on the website and stuff like that.
Okay. Well,
Hannah says hi. Hello, Hannah. Good to meet you. Hi, Hannah.
There's no questions left, I don't.
Yeah, Steve's got one. He's thinking about working for a technical company where there are experts within the company working for. Yeah, experts always are handy to have in any client's repertoire. You can bring them to the surface, get them writing, get them express, get it up the chain how important that is in today's society. And I think to a degree, Terry, you're feeding their egos anyways. A lot of people want to put their face out there. They just need a little shove in the right direction,
Yeah. Like I said, I would want to have them people very on the right forums. I would want them very to be in the spotlight on those forums. In other words, the influencers.
Well, think of these Hangouts as content. You know what I mean? I've been on some where there's dead space and humming and hawing or low-keyed chatter, and some of the personalities, all the love to their intelligence, probably shouldn't be in video formats of content like this because they're just not engaging or passionate or whatever. You know what I mean? That's why everyone loves you, Terry. It's like, oh, I did love. You know how many times I get things on? I was gonna say tweets on Skype. You know how many times I got messages on fucking Skype that are like, I love Terry, man. He's awesome. I can listen to him all day and shit like that, man. Why? Because you're passionate. Who, if they agree with you or disagree, and people love to disagree with you, and I think that's important too, Doc. No, like that whole element of having personalities that are facing forward, public-facing people for the company, engaging depending on the situation. Obviously the dojo, we're adversarial a bit in the dojo, so that's our style. So that almost comes through when you see this content. Or sorry, pros, SEO pros.
Gotta be like me, able to take the good with the bad. I don't put it stock in either one.
But yeah, you've got good.
Maybe the ones that are really personal.
Steve, if you've got good technical writers and people that are good at writing white papers, and use that as content. If you've got people who are good in front of a camera, use that as content. Leverage the people in the business and their passions and what they're good at. But avoid what they're bad at, for sure.
Yeah, the guy can't really take the heat when someone disagrees with him. He's probably not the guy you want out front.
He's not going to put the image out that you want to project, yeah.
That's right.
Sharif Ahmad has left us a question or something possibly, but it's in Cyrillic. No, it's in Arabic, I guess.
Yes, Arabic.
So sorry, Aaron's not here at the moment. Sorry.
Yeah. I think the Brazil, they've taken the internet down.
Doc, from your side of things, you know what I mean? I get happy with pandas and penguins and stuff because twofold. One, I get work from it, and two, I just like to see things getting cleaned up. I know in your business, you guys, I'm starting to get a New York thing going on. From your perspective, has it improved things? Are you getting? Because I remember like 3 years ago how horrible it was, people wanting $10 articles and crap like that. Have you seen an uptick in people wanting better stuff and paying and obviously paying for it? Or
no, since Panda hit, absolutely. There's been more cognizance of the necessity to put up some quality content, and that continues to improve. It is slowly but surely soaking in on people that you can't put crap content up and expect to get lasting results. So that has helped our content strategy business grow tremendously, to the point where we recently took on Laura Crest has come on to manage Top Shelf Copy for us because it was growing so fast and taking too much time. And on the Penguin side, my SEO business has grown tremendously because we do so much forensic and recovery work. So I haven't had time to put into the content. So yeah, I mean, I love watching Google dial this stuff in and get better at it, because it's helping me in all regards in terms of business.
Yeah, I think though too, Doc, cuts a lot of the
low end people.
Oh,
no,
absolutely.
I think they're still getting used. I think there's still crapping idiots out there still used.
But it's getting tougher for them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would imagine. Odesk for the win once upon a time.
There's still lots of SEO companies that are advocating using article marketing and all of that low end stuff. It's not like because Google said we're not going to count it anymore, or they're put Panda on it. Companies are going to sell what they have to sell.
Well, we saw somebody this morning saying that they're paying $3 per article. And I almost gagged, but geez, it's got to be some killer content, right? But the bottom line is there are people out there, there's spam networks and blog networks that are paying $2 and $3 for articles because they're a churn and burn, put it up, use it, abuse it, burn it down, put up a new one. There's still business out there for those people, but it's getting tougher. And that churn and burn is a much shorter cycle now. You might be able to put up a crap site a couple of years ago that would last you 6 months. Now, if it lasts you 6 weeks, you've made a record, okay? So, it's getting tougher. And from my standpoint, since we don't walk on that side of the line, we use, we build quality sites, we do quality SEO, we use quality content. So for me, it's a godsend. That new sheriff in town is making business wonderful for us. If I was walking on the dark side, I would probably be cussing up a storm.
You also don't sell packages.
No.
lot of these guys, or a lot of companies are still selling packages.
Yeah, I know. A lot of these big companies are, yeah.
Well, all kinds of companies are doing it. It's just, I don't know, you know.
Clueless?
Well, it's like, you know, having one size fits all. You know what I mean? I think you should have an a la carte menu and work from that.
Absolutely. No, I think, you know, a package in terms of, let's say, you know, from a content generator standpoint, we're going to give you 3 blog posts a week or 5 blog posts a week. That's an acceptable package. That's a quantity of articles or posts. Okay, fine. But when you start trying to package SEO, that's just asinine. That's like walking into a doctor's office, no exam, no diagnosis. It's going to cost you $60. I'm going to give you 3 shots and hand you 4 pills. Don't expect a lot of results, you know?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, you can expect results, just don't expect good results.
Had to get
I'm gonna see
clean my throat out. So.
I'm SEO pros. Look at me go.
But Doc is not only an excellent copywriter, he's also an excellent public speaker.
Well, as long as they don't mind the occasional F-bomb.
That, I think you're in the wrong industry.
Or later on.
Politics.
See, I used to be a perfect gentleman when speaking, and I got hanging around Terry, and I just realized, you know what? I look in the mirror one day, I said, I'm 60 years old, I don't need to give a fuck.
That's what it is. You become so old you don't care anymore.
I don't care anymore what people think of me, you know?
I've given up on that one a long time ago.
Well, to our 6 viewers, we just dropped a link on the SEO Pros Google Plus page. If you'd like to come in and join us, feel free.
Oh, Dave's partaking.
Oh, look at me go, baby. I'm like a professional. 7 of these motherfuckers last week, and Doc still calls me a pussy. Fucking crazy, man. I'm like, I'm the master.
No,
I'm like the jack of all trades, master of none. You know, I start talking data, fucking Eric makes me look like an idiot. I start talking Hangouts, I got you. I'm trolled everywhere I go lately, man.
Hey, you're just so trollable.
Always a bridesmaid. Trollable.
How do you like my new logo, David? Dad?
No bullshit. I like it.
That looks vaguely familiar. I think I've seen that before.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was a picture, John. Hold on.
No,
that'd be a horse's ass, not a bull.
Personal logo.
Oh God. So when you're doing content, Doc, like, I'm curious how you price things, how you structure stuff. Meaning, like, a lot of times, if I was dealing with content people, I'd supply the research, supply a lot of the background and elements of that, so they can focus on the writing. So do you have like tiered structures? Meaning, like, I know the infographic guys are like that. Do we have to do the research, or are you supplying the research kind of thing?
Right.
Do you actually tier pricing that way as far as how much research time has to go into putting a piece together or whatever?
It varies a little bit, obviously, from client to client, but typically we'll look at, first of all, when somebody tells me I've got 5 keywords I want to go after, I want 500 to 600 words, and I need 3 posts a week, I generally try to walk away from those things. To me, when somebody
if I come to you and I say I want a piece of pillar content, I'm willing to spend $500 or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm looking for something evergreen, something seriously worked out, researched, one of the best documents on the web on that topic matter. If I come to you with something like that, how are you going about the pricing? And
if you toss
and does
me
the level
of
research I provide ahead of time towards that project come into play in what you have to do?
To really put together a solid piece of kick-ass content, I have to be able to feel a little bit passionate about it too. So if you come to me and you say you want a nice piece of content that's going to talk up the concept of keyword density, okay, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. because I can't write about that shit. I don't believe in it. I think it's wrong. I won't put it out there. I don't care what the price is. But my preference is that you give me a couple links. Here's a couple of resources. This is the kind of direction I think this piece needs to go in. Don't give me a length. I'll tell you, I'll do it for $200, $500, whatever it is, and it's going to be research that's going to present the theme adequately. That may come in at 800 words. It may come in at 3,000 words. I don't care. Whatever it takes to get the message across properly is what you're going to get for the price I quote you. And the price I quote is going to vary quite a bit depending upon how much research I have to do. If it's going to need some special stuff, if I got to do a bunch of screenshots and some Photoshop work, there's going to be a little bit of added charge to that. If it's just a matter of researching the topic and putting together a pillar piece, that's pretty much going to be a standard price. If it's a sales page, one of these endless scroll sales pages, it's going to run about $2,000. If it's a piece of web copy for your home page, it's probably going to run about $200. Because my research basically for the home page is going to be on site. I'm going to research the company and your message, and that's what I'm going to do. But if it's going to be a sales page, now there's going to be a lot of work going into it. There's going to be a lot of graphics going into it. That's going to take some time. So part of it that factors in for us is the hours we're going to have to put into it. Part of it is the backup graphics and that sort of thing that we're going to have to put into it. It just, it varies. Again, there's no real package even for content. When somebody wants a blogging service where we're gonna handle their blog for them, total blog management. We're gonna put up 3 posts per week. We're gonna handle all the comments. We're gonna take care of graphics and everything for the post. Bam! I can give you a package for that, but it's still gonna vary somewhat by one client to another. Am I having to invent and develop a persona over time? Is there one existing I'm taking over? Is the voice difficult, or is it a easily made engageable voice? That's the sort of things that come into play. And that's going to affect somewhat the pricing.
What, Dave leave?
He dropped out, yeah. And
maybe his machine blew up again.
Could be.
Yeah. I don't think the low-end content has got a lot of places now.
Oh, now he's back. Well, he was back for a second. Well, unfortunately it still has a life, but I think it is dwindling. I hope it's dwindling.
I think a cool idea, Doc. A cool idea, Doc. We were talking yesterday about topicality and keywords, and I was thinking that it would be a nice idea to have like series. Let's say 5 articles, but those 5 articles, they're gonna be one article split it down to 5, and then you load it up on WordPress, for example, if it's a blog, and you put that series with attribute that series with link prefs and next, and you don't need to have on all the pages the keyword.
Well, when we do something like that, we're doing that from the SEO arm. Developing content is one thing, and putting it to maximum use, I look at that more as an SEO function. When you get beyond content strategy, now you talk about presentation and semantic markup and shit like that. I don't do that out of top shelf. I do that out of intrinsic value because it's just not. It's too specialized for just content generation.
Okay.
Well, I have 9 minutes.
2.
I gotta go help Deb and Scott with something.
Okay, with the question. You want to ask David about LSI, I think, right?
Yeah, fuck yeah, for sure. Well, you gotta be using that. If you're not, you don't know how to write content, obviously, if you're not doing some LSI. And thank God Eric's not here, so. That's all I can say. Still on air, yeah, we are apparently.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm going to turn it off here soon. I think we've exhausted this.
Might as well. I think we kind of shot the wad.
Yeah.